Hello folks, it's Jim Hansen sitting in for Frank Gaffney, and we are going to do some Secure Freedom Radio. And incidentally, if you enjoy the kind of milk of human kindness, sweetness and light commentary that I provide here, you can find more of that with full snark at Twitter, where I am Uncle_Jimbo. You know, folks, one of the main reasons I feared and opposed a Hillary Clinton regime was the damage she and any appointees she put on the Supreme Court could do to our freedoms, the most important of which is enshrined in the First Amendment, our freedom of speech. Now, that right has been under assault from the left, and Hillary would have been a nightmare unleashing thought and speech police on us. The election of Donald Trump seems to have so unhinged the left that they are now making full-throated assaults on him and anyone offered up as a member of his new administration. In a twist on the censorship and hate speech policing they would have brought to bear had their champion of state power been elected, the left is now shrieking racist, bigot, hater, Islamophobe, anti-Semite, and every other vile slur and calumny they can come up with, like monkeys at the zoo flinging poo. It brings to mind that line from The Princess Bride. You keep using that word, but I do not think it means what you think it means. Now, since they don't operate the organs of state power, the left's ability to implement the more Orwellian bits of their political correctness agenda is somewhat limited. So for the time being, we will be spared an actual ministry of truth and thought police. But the left seems to have collectively, a mode of operation they're quite fond of, self-deputized themselves to operate as arbiters of what may or may not be said or even thought. Now, this is not surprising, as Hillary herself was involved in an attempt to put global thought and speech policing in play with UN Resolution 1618. This was an effort by Islamist groups which dominate the UN to actually criminalize anything which they found offensive. Now, we all know those folks are in a state of permanently chafed, and this resolution calls on all member nations to criminalize whatever bothers these grievance mongers. Now, in a rare moment of acknowledging that we actually have a Constitution and Bill of Rights that makes criminalizing offense giving impossible, well, for now, Hillary suggested that we would need to use some old-fashioned techniques of peer pressure and shaming. That was her plan to break the rabble from their antiquated notion they could actually think and say what they want. Instead, we should flip that on its head and allow the folks who don't like something to decide what the rest of us can profess. Now, while it's certainly legal to use peer pressure and shaming to change actions, the very idea of putting discussion of the very real and very dangerous problem of Islamist supremacy and the jihad off limits is so entirely un-American and anti-constitutional that it should be shamed and peer pressured right into the nearest dumpster. And protecting the Islamists from hearing anything they don't like is hardly the limit. Criticism of any protected victim group is on the chopping block, as well as opposition to any of the enlightened left's plans to turn actual justice under our system of laws into social justice that benefits their client constituencies in ways that are sometimes too absurd to even understand. For instance, right now, the same people who savagely attacked Christian bakeries that didn't want to bake cakes for gay weddings now support the right of Starbucks to refuse to call out the name Trump if that's what one of its customers tells them that's the name they want used for their order of overpriced Java juice. Even worse, our oldest ally, the Brits, have lost their ability to dissent and actually have rules against offending others which can bring the state crashing down upon them. Incidentally, if our friends across the pond want a blueprint for throwing off the yoke of an oppressive state, we've got a pretty good one. But one of the most absurd acts in recent history saw a British politician arrested in public for quoting Winston Churchill. Take a moment for that to set in. One of the most British of all Brits, and a leader who had as much to do with saving the entire UK and the free world from destruction in World War II, is now off limits. The left is determined to make any criticism of the entire canon of liberal politics de facto proof that you are an ist, racist, sexist, whatever. You are evil and must be shunned. Having the audacity to say, hey, maybe we ought to have an actual border where, it's illegal for people to cross it, is an outrage. How dare you? It is awful, cruel, bigotry, and racism. And don't you dare call the people who do this illegal aliens, even though that is the proper legal term. No, they are simply undocumented immigrants, or in one of the most perfectly implemented uses of Ministry of Truth approved newspeak, they are new Americans. As if anyone who can get past our nearly non-existent borders should receive a welcome packet and a guide to signing up for benefits. Oh wait, they actually do. Equally or even more heinous is any failure to accept the complete moral authority of the black community to assert that not only do black lives matter, but your life, if like me you are a fluorescent pinkish tone, is an unfair gift which you did not earn and should actually apologize for in what is dementedly called white privilege. I missed the white privilege line when I joined the Army at age 18, right next to black dudes, Hispanics, and we were all told the only color that matters here is green. The same folks who profess to be the tolerant ones will tolerate no deviation from their politically correct playbook. And teen diversity has requirements for race, skin tone, sexuality, gender preference, and dozens of other approved identity victim groups. But they've got a zero tolerance policy for diversity of opinion. This is taught as secular gospel on campuses all over the country, where special snowflakes are protected from anything that might cause them bad feels by a cadre of committed social justicists. Just try to find a conservative, and you will search fruitlessly, although a sign you have found one is a mob of aggrieved souls surrounding them, whining that an idea they don't like has invaded their safe space. Universities used to be places where we sent young adults to learn how to think critically. Now they learn to criticize actual thinking and simply absorb the truth from the newly minted commissars of correctness, or pay the price and be a cultural leper, outcast and unclean. The right to dissent in thought, speech, and action is vital to a fully functioning democracy. It is the bedrock upon which all of the rest of our freedoms are built, and it is what makes America great, and greater than anywhere else, because there is nowhere else with the right to express your beliefs absent fear of retribution from the government. But equally so, we must have a society where that right is recognized and respected. Shutting down opposing viewpoints is a sign of a totalitarian state. And that, my friends, is not what the U.S. is about. So it's time to stand tall and tell the unlicensed and un-American thought and speech police, not in this country. We will not submit, we will not shut up, and we will prevail. I'm Jim Hansen, and I approve this message, and I hope you do as well.
Prosecuted multiple BMPs, BTRs, airport earlier on the plate. And then we've also prosecuted a convoy of BTRs with dealer 5-5.